A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome into One Giant Step. The summer of Giants love continues here on One Giant Step. At Bryce Gelman, at Shaun Morash on Twitter. Bryce and I have, I don't know about been at odds, but we've had differing opinions for quite some time on the future of Kayvon Thibodeaux in a New York Giant uniform. And I think that future was very much escalated and discussed when it became realistic that Abdul Carter could end up on the New York Giants. And then it became even more of a, I think, internal thought and discussion when Abdul Carter officially became a member of the New York Football Giants. And now that we've seen and heard things from Shaun, we've seen and heard things from OTAs, I think it's the perfect time. We've waited long enough. And I'm proud that we've waited this long because I think this collecting more data on something is always important than just necessarily being like I could be on the radio, which is so reactionary. And I think Bryce was reactionary. So I'm curious if Bryce, and I don't know if he has changed his mindset on this, but it is our official One Giant Step Future of Kayvon episode, one that you should put a pin in because we won't know this answer for a little while. And the simple question is, Bryce, beyond the year 2025, should the Giants work out an extension with Kayvon Thibodeaux? Or should Kayvon Thibodeaux eventually walk away from the New York Football Giants? So here we are. This will be Kayvon Thibodeaux's fourth year. They did exercise the fifth-year option on him. So technically he is a Giant for next year as well. But again, should he be here long-term? Bryce, you have already, for those of you not watching on the YouTube channel and just listening, shook your head no. I am shaking my head yes. I am pro Kayvon. I'm going to make the case. But usually I let my big fat mouth utter and blutter and bloviate all over One Giant Step. So because I think I'm right and you're dead wrong.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to lead the way here and make the case on why you don't believe Kayvon Thibodeaux should be a New York Giant. And I'm not going to tell you what points to make. I'm not going to tell you where you went wrong. I just want you to state your case and then I'll shred you.
He should be the second Thibodeaux to be sent out of New York.
Boy, you've been sitting on that, huh? You know that one is Tom Thibodeaux. The other is Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Well, people call him Thibodeaux. Same thing. It's the same last name besides the X, which is so weird. Makes no sense to me. But listen, I digress. I've been saying this for a long period of time before the draft, literally during our draft episode, after the draft. I don't think it makes much sense, and I need to see the full cap table. I don't think it makes sense, just like going off the top of my head, to spend 25% of your cap room on defensive line. I understand it's extremely important, but you just drafted a guy in Abdul Carter who's going to be on a rookie contract for the next 5 years. He will be, listen, knock on wood, we have no idea what kind of player he's going to be. It's widely agreed that he was a top 2 player, if not the best player in this draft. The Giants may have just gotten themselves a generational talent. You want said generational talent to take as many reps as humanly possible on the field. And they also just traded a good amount. Listen, it wasn't necessarily the assets they gave up. It was just the amount of cap that they dedicated towards signing Brian Burns. So you went out and you traded for Brian Burns, and you signed him to this massive extension. You've got Dexter Lawrence on a great contract for being the best defensive player in football. He's on a great contract. So you have 2 guys on the defensive line who are paid. Realistically, Kayvon Thibodeaux, you could see something about him screams he's going to want a lot of freaking money. He's going to think he's more valuable than he actually is. I think his value kind of sits like $15 million a year. Anything above that, get lost. So, I think I tend to think that he would want more than that. But I look at this like this. The Giants could get a bunch of assets for him because he's above average.
You want to trade him?
Yes, I've been saying this. I've been wanting to trade him. How many times have the Giants how many times have the Giants in the last 2 years not traded a guy who actually had value at the trade deadline, held on to them, and then lost them in free agency? I can't see that again. Kayvon has value. He isn't just a pass rusher. He's good in the run game. he's an above average all around defensive end. It's someone that I believe would be very valuable for a few teams around the league. For the Giants, you're not paying a guy $20 million to be a rotational piece on defensive end. He might play 40, 50% of snaps. You're going to give that guy $20 million a year? Come on. There's no way you could agree with that. Listen, I think you wouldn't agree with, I think you would agree with that, but where we're having differing opinions is on trading. You believe, it sounds like, that you would like to hold on to him for an entire season and then lose out on him for nothing. And I don't think that makes much sense. You see what happened with Saquon. You see what happened with Xavier McKinney. Not good.
Okay. You done? You got that all out? You ready for me to pull down my pants and take a squadouche all over it?
Go for it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have my rebuttal, so go.
All right. Bryce, come on. Here's the beautiful thing everybody forgets when the moment the Giants got Abdul Carter. When you draft a quarterback in the first round for 4 years, guess what you get to do? Whatever the F you want with the salary cap, because you're not paying a quarterback top dollar. Now, you brought up Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley, and I think that's a worthy argument. They didn't trade either. They let them both walk for nothing. They both had very, very great first years outside of being New York Giants. And in hindsight, should they have traded them in a dead year? I'm not here to argue revisionist history. I would have traded them if you knew you weren't going to sign them. So I do understand the point you're coming up with. Here's a big difference, though. Those guys were drafted by Dave Gettleman. They were not drafted by this general manager and Joe Schoen. That's number one. Number two, Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Oh, now it's Thibodeaux? Now it's Thibodeaux.
Now you caught me. Kayvon Thibodeaux gets so much hate from Giant fans, some Giant fans. He's a good player.
Above average.
Above average edge rusher. Now, is that what you wanted at 5th overall? No, but I think if you had him at 25th overall, you'd be like, oh, this is a good pick. So let me just trip down memory lane. Kayvon Thibodeaux is rookie of the year. He gets AP Defensive Rookie of the Year votes. He only has 4 sacks, but does have the 6 tackles for loss, has the 2 forced fumbles, 5 pass deflections, comes out in 2023, racks up 11.5 sacks. Last year, a little injury-plagued, 5.5 sacks, 17 quarterback hits. Like, Kayvon Thibodeaux, everybody wants to complain about, oh, he's got 1 move, he's got 2 moves. Kayvon Thibodeaux is effective at getting in the backfield. Kayvon Thibodeaux, outside of 2022, the last 2 years, has not been on a defense where they could pin their ears back and play to his strengths, where they're playing with leads and he could go finish games. You think about the play he made direct that Sunday Night Football game versus Washington in his rookie year where he scores the touchdown. He basically ends the Ravens and Packers games in those rookie years with those sacks. Yeah, hurts Aaron Rodgers in that game, if you remember. Yeah. He was tremendous in those spots. And in the last 2 years have been lost years where, look, I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is a perfect edge guy to have on a team that's winning, where you could I think he's a closer. Now, man, I don't know how soft we've became with the, well, do you want to allocate all your assets to one position? And you're spitting out the cap number stuff, Bryce. Again, it hurts a team less when your quarterback is on a rookie deal, which is what the Giants are going to have. Number two, let's play the timetable game. You are 3 years away from Abdul Carter being discussed in picking up the 5th-year option, which we hope they do. And then maybe if he's as good as advertised, you already work out an extension where you can lessen some cap hits early there. By the end of those 3 years with Abdul Carter, we will be approaching the final year of Brian Burns' contract. What will Brian Burns look like 3 years from now when you finally need to start to have discussions about paying Abdul Carter? I don't know. But by the time I get to those 3 years of having that discussion, if I've signed Kayvon Thibodeaux to a 5-year extension, that could make it easy to not bring Brian Burns back in 3 years if he ages. The point I'm saying here, Bryce, is the Giants have actually played this pretty perfectly, where the allocation of resources in the edge room salary-wise with the Abdul Carter rookie deal into Kayvon, into Burns, is it will be staggered enough like a puzzle piece that you could get away with paying Kayvon Thibodeaux. And by the time the Burns deal is up, you may want to bring Burns back. And maybe you've already front-loaded a couple of years on Thibodeaux's deal where it's not that big a deal. And for you to say 45, 50% of the snaps, like that's all he's going to get because they have 3 edges. I don't know about that, because already at OTAs, you had Shane Bowen saying the idea is to get your best 11 defenders out there and Abdul Carter, because they've basically liked him to Micah Parsons and all he did. Abdul Carter played a lot of that stand-up linebacker role before his edge stuff. It feels like in OTAs, they are tempting to use Abdul Carter in plenty of packages like a chess piece where it's Thibodeaux and Burns still out there. I think it's so rigged to think you have two pass rushers and the other one's got to be off the field. No, I think they're going to play a ton more on the field at the same time than you think they are. And then that includes working in the Dexter Lawrence, Darius Alexander stuff. We have screamed and yelled about not having good football players, not having good depth. How can you let good football players leave and Xavier McKinney and Saquon? So why are we going to let Kayvon leave? Why? You can afford him.
Okay. How much money do you think Kayvon's going to ask for in free agency? Let me just ask you that.
Perfect question.
This changes everything.
I brought this up. I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought this up. So, do I think Kayvon Thibodeaux has done enough or will do enough over the next year and a half to earn Myles Garrett's deal of an average of $40 million a year? I do not. Will he get the aging deal that Danielle Hunter got at $35 million? That was a very different short-term deal. I'm guessing not. Nick Bosa around $34 million a year with a 2029 void year? Probably not. I think you start to get into the Brian Burns, Montez Sweat stuff. 24, 28. But here's the thing. The salary cap's only going to keep going up and up and up. I think there's a way to structure that. There was also something that came out last week, a couple weeks ago. The Giants are the only team in the NFL without any dummy years, which is becoming a thing. And if they get that 10% owner that puts some liquid cash, that was like the Eli rumors and the Strahan rumors. The reason for that is those dummy years involve liquid cash that gets paid to guys through bonuses. The Giants haven't done that. All the Mara money is through the Giants. They don't have outside business stuff. That is why the Giants don't do that. If they get that, that changes everything too with some of the liquid cash. I know that's very businessy, and I'm speaking a little out of school there because I'm not necessarily the smartest business guy. But you're saying done. I'm again reminding you, the reason the Giants the last couple of years were truly screwed in like how to figure a cap is they were then paying Daniel Jones $40 million a year. So you're not paying Jackson Dart that yet.
You're going to pay Kayvon $30+ million, essentially be paying a quarterback on the roster? Because that's what a quarterback could potentially be making. I don't think
28 mil is not going to feel like a lot in 2-3 years. It's not.
Blow my brains.
It's not.
$28 million.
Where are you spending? Where else are you spending
$28 million? You think he's played enough? You think he's played well enough to make $28 million? How much money are they going to be spending on the defensive line? $85 million. Come on. That's like what? That's 1/3 of the amount of money they paid the entire team. They have holes to fill it outside linebacker. They still need a
He is an outside linebacker.
Okay, he can play outside linebacker. You need an actual stand-up outside linebacker.
What are you talking about? He drafted Abdul Carter.
Also, there's no guarantee that Deonte Banks isn't going to suck again. So then you're going to need a second cornerback. Sure. You might need a cornerback one. Paulson and Debo, he could be a really good player, but they could look at him and be like, listen, he's a second cornerback. We need a cornerback one.
Bryce. They just drafted a quarterback, did they not? And we don't know if he's going to be good. Did they not?
They did.
Did they have to trade next year's first-round pick for that? Did they?
No. Okay. Wouldn't you like a second and maybe a third-round pick for Kayvon Thibodeaux?
No, because then I'm dreaming of drafting a player as good as Kayvon Thibodeaux with that, which is hard to do.
Instead of paying the guy $28 million a year.
You're so worried about whether it's the second wide receiver or the corner. That's what every year with the draft is for. I'd rather take that second rounder or whatever.
I disagree.
Take the wide receiver. This is the beauty of taking the quarterback. You take advantage of not losing your good players. Kayvon Thibodeaux,
just because you draft a quarterback, you're going to dole out a contract that makes no sense?
Well, hold on.
Okay, congratulations. You drafted a young quarterback who's making pennies on the dollar. And now let's go and overpay a guy who's above average. He's no top edge rusher in the league. Is he even a top 15 edge rusher? Probably. Is he top 10? No.
Bryce, we're also projecting this based on if with Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, we go out there and he's banged up and he stinks and he regresses, of course I'm not doing it. I'm operating on the assumption of here we are in year 4. He's beefed up top and he has these other two guys. Man, they could have a really sexy defense with 3 guys coming at you in waves. And I don't know, Bryce. Giants didn't seem to have a problem paying on a lesser cap and a lesser era 3 big-time edge rushers on their team. Whether it was drafting guys high like they did with Kiwanuka and Jason Pierre-Paul to add to paying like Takanosi. They've done this before. And the Giants were at their best when they did this. Edge is not inside linebacker. Edge is not the running back position. Edge isn't even the guard position, which are all important. Edge, if you have 3 really good edge rushers, you change games. Look at the times Patrick Mahomes loses Super Bowls, those 2 Super Bowls. It's because they came out of pass rush with waves. And if you could come out in waves, you don't necessarily have to blitz all the time, which helps your secondary. I think they've struck gold in having 3 dynamic edge rushers here. And I don't want to just do that for 1 year. And then suddenly we get to year 2 and 3 of Jackson Dart, where you feel like the team could really be humming along. And I'm talking about if Jackson Dart clicks, check. Malik Neighbors is awesome. Check. Defense is pretty damn special with these 3 edge rushers. Check. I don't mean to say this because I'm looking 2-3 years down the road. You're going to start thinking, is this team a Super Bowl type team? If now, well, at least you get to go right. But that's the thing, right? That's what you're building towards. How do you win those games? How do you win those playoff games? By closing out and having an awesome edge rusher.
And by not paying Kayvon Thibodeaux $28 million a year.
You don't pay him.
25.
You don't pay him. And then it's the 1 year Abdul Carter tears a meniscus like Osi Umenyiora did in 08, and the Giants were left. Perfect. You know what? I'm glad you walked me right into it. 2008. Little trip down memory lane. Sit on Uncle Shawnee's lap here, all right? Preseason game finale, or third game. At that time, it's 4th preseason game. Osi Umenyiora tears up his knee. Okay, people forget this coming off the Super Bowl. Strahan had retired. The Giants have Matthias Kiwanuka and Justin Tuck. Think about that. They played the entire year after the Super Bowl where they came at Tom Brady in waves with no Osi Umenyiora and no Michael Strahan anymore. People forget that nugget about Osi. Kiwanuka and Tuck. Kiwanuka and Tuck. So that pass rush wave that they had that was so good in 07 was gone in 08. And everybody points to Plaxico Burress shooting himself and saying that's the reason the Giants didn't win.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean,
pretty big deal. But I'm here to tell you, if you actually paid attention and didn't have that lazy narrative, what was happening to the Giants down the stretch of that season was their pass rush was gassed. They stopped hitting quarterbacks as frequently. Why? Because they didn't have that rotation of pass rushers. They ended up losing to the Philadelphia Eagles in the postseason. They couldn't touch Donovan McNabb in the game. And everybody walked away going, well, Dominic Hickson was the number 1 wide receiver. This is all Plaxico's fault. Nonsense. Nanny poopy. Yes, that was a big deal. They also were not winning a Super Bowl because they ran out of gas in the pass rush. What happens? Well, they end up, the next couple of years pass by. They draft Jason Pierre-Paul. OC comes back. Now suddenly the wave of pass rush is back. What happens in 11? They win the Super Bowl. Why? They have a wave of pass rushers, mainly headlined by a big 3. That is the Giants' recipe. And look, if they let Kayvon walk like you want him to, because you're not paying him that kind of money.
No, I don't want them to
then
let
what
him
happens
walk.
when Abdul Carter tears up a knee? You don't have that depth anymore either, and you're down to Brian Burns.
You got 3 extra picks potentially to play with. You could draft an edge rusher there. They had these edge rushers. The Eagles had these edge rushers in waves, and they weren't paying their 3rd or 4th guy $28 million a year.
They just paid Bryce Huff, who couldn't get on the field.
They traded him
a year. And
they traded him.
And guess what they did? Were the Eagles in cap hell last year?
They're never in cap hell.
Okay, and they didn't have a quarterback on a rookie deal. That is what I'm telling you. The Jackson Dart payment thing changes everything. Kayvon Thibodeaux has to be here, and prediction, he will be here.
I think Chauncey Golston's a pretty good option. I think he could be a good number 3. He had a few sacks with the
think about it. I'm telling you, in 3 years, 4 years, you may not have Brian Burns anyway. You could actually fit all 3 the way the payments are structured and the way they've staggered paying these guys.
I don't know. What are you not going to? I mean, listen, Brian Burns, obviously, he's been a good Giant. He hasn't been amazing. I don't think he's exactly worth this contract. He's 27 years old. They signed him, obviously, at 26. 3 years from now, I mean, he's going to be what? 29, 30?
Pay Kavon. All right. Thank you. Follow us on Twitter and X at Bryce Gelman, at Shaun Morash. The summer of love on One Giant Step continues. Thank you for listening to One Giant Step.